Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Horse Center. It's another Money Monday with the tremendously talented Sean Drupp, along with our guest tonight, track announcer from Turf Paradise, Craig Braddick. Craig, how are you tonight?
Oh, great to be with you, Rich. I'm having a great time. We had a great day of racing today at Turf Paradise. 8 races. Looking forward, of course, to the rest of the week, racing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And now that we have the clubhouse fully open, serving food and drinks every day, we're building a new sports book down on the ground floor of the grandstand, a brand new Unibet sports book that we hope will be open by the end of the year. So exciting times at Turf Paradise right now. And as the meet begins to bed in a little bit, hopefully as winter goes on, we'll begin picking up more and more horses in the races. And hopefully for everyone out there, Turf Paradise will once again provide a very good wagering option over the winter.
So nothing really happening at Turf Paradise then?
Nah, nothing at all.
Nothing at all. So speaking of nothing that happened at all, I'm kind of curious. You have off, it's kind of like track announcers. You get a little bit of time between meets. It's a little bit like high school, a little summer vacation for you type thing. So what do you do with your time off? Do you practice your aluminum linoleums, or what sort of stuff do you do?
I'm really lucky, but I really don't get much time off at all. I'm more or less cooling year round when you consider my work at Turf Paradise, my work on the California circuit on the fairs, and then the steeplechase races I call on weekends in the spring and autumn out in Virginia primarily. But I usually have 3 weeks off in September. But when I'm not on days I'm working and I'm home here in Phoenix, I like to play golf a lot, Phoenix being a great golf mecca. I'm big into archive TV, and not the kind of TV that you see on like old TV channels, but actually restoring old television programs that were broadcast first in the 1950s and 60s, and in most cases haven't been repeated since. And I'm hoping to start my PhD in the summer of next year, which is going to cover the first 25 years of BBC sports broadcasting after World War II, pretty much from the 1948 London Olympics through to the 1972 Munich Olympics. So I'm doing a lot of work and getting that together right now. But, when I'm not at the racetrack, I don't like to spend too much time looking at horse racing. Horse racing is my work and I love it, but I need other things to go on in my mind as well. I love reading social history, especially the history of Great Britain and America post-World War II. I always have a number of books on the go about that as well. So yeah, I have lots to keep my time. I play a game called table soccer, which is basically little plastic men about so tall, and you flick them around a green soccer field trying to hit the ball. And that's a big game in Europe, and it's taking off here now in the US. So yeah, I have plenty to keep my time. And of course, I have my 2 dogs and my girlfriend, although I probably should have said my girlfriend and my 2 dogs, so she doesn't do it.
Well, you can always say you save the best for last, right?
Save the best for last, absolutely.
So much like Turf Paradise, it doesn't sound like you got much going on either.
No, not at all. My days are full of, waiting around by the swimming pool, looking at all the beautiful views you can see here in Phoenix. Some of them in human form as well.
Yeah, I was going to say hammocks and pina coladas. Nothing wrong with that, right?
Nothing wrong with that at all.
Absolutely. Hey, Sean, how you doing tonight?
I'm good. Craig, nice to have you on again. So let's go in. Some people want to know, with the announcer, how do you start? So, we talk to jockeys and trainers. When do you start with that day's race? Walk us through it.
So I think every announcer has their own individual methodology of doing this. I've seen some announcers who literally just look at the field 2 minutes beforehand and hope for the best. And I tend to go to the opposite extreme. I tend to, if anything, to over prepare. What I do the night before is I get the race program, which they send me a copy of in my email, and I print it out, and I have a little rubber stamp here which an announcer in the UK gave me when I was 12 years old. And it has, you may be able to see, it has the outline of a jockey. So I take the program and I stamp a little rubber stamp out, which is like the head and torso of a jockey. And then I color in the rubber stamp with the jockey silks. And then in the program itself and on the rest of the page, I make little notes, like a shorthand I've developed over the years. So for an example, if I put a plus sign next to the horse's name, it means it's a front runner. If I put a minus sign next to it, it means the horse is a late closer. If the horse is going for 3 wins in a row, I'll put 3 ? Next to it. If it's won over this course and distance before, I'll put CD next to it. So I get an idea from doing that. My prep work the night before, I can kind of work out 2 or 3 different scenarios the race is likely to take. And all of that helps me gear up for the day when I'm calling races. And when I get to the racetrack, personally, what I like to do is I like to get there early. Not only because I love being at the racetrack, I enjoy the atmosphere early. You know, the horses have just come off from training. There's like a nice little, I guess it's a personal thing, but for me, it feels like a little slice of utopia right there. We're just waiting and settling into the day's action. And I go up to the announcer's booth usually when I'm up there, and I like to be in there, say, 2 hours before racing. And then up in the announcer's booth, I have a folder. And I got this idea from Tom Durkin. And it's a folder full of words. I have like 1,200 phrases in there that I can use in a race call. And maybe 30 different phrases for going fast, or 30 different words for going slowly. And I try to read that every day. Now, I don't always get through that every day, but I try and read that. And then about 45 minutes before post time, I call the jockey's room and I get all the scratches and changes, call the TV department, make sure they have the same scratches and changes that I do. And then half an hour to post time, we do the national anthem and go on the air. Generally speaking, what I tend to do is at Turf Paradise, the announcer's booth is at one end of the press box, and I can walk out to the other end of the press box and look at the horses in the paddock, and I'll take my program. And for instance, if a horse is wearing red blinkers, I'll make a little red check mark in the program, just as like a brief note for me in the future. And, you know, when the horses come out onto the track, and then I'll make sure the jockey's silks are correct as on my program. And then I go back to the announcer's booth, say, hey, the horses are coming out onto the track for the 3rd race, yada, 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 yada. And then that 6 or 7 minutes before they go into the gate, I like to think of as my time. That's the time I get all the horses in my head, get them matching the colors, keep repeating the names over and over. And, you know, there are days when I can have 10 horses a race or 12 horses a race all day, and I can look at the program for 2 or 3 minutes and have them all in my head. And there are days when I'll have 6 and 7 horse fields all day, and I'm going into the gate going, oh, what the heck am I looking at here? And it really, I haven't noticed any particular reason why. Just some days the synapses in the brain are firing better than they are on other days. So that's kind of what I do on a daily basis, and then get home in the evening, have dinner, hang out with the dogs and my girlfriend, and then begin the homework for the next race day.
Mm-hmm.
We had jockey Kevin Racky complimenting you there, and he was hoping to meet you at the Fresno Fair, but I guess you guys didn't hook up. He said maybe next time.
I'd absolutely love to meet Kevin. Yeah, thank you for his comment.
Maybe you could catch up on the golf course, Kevin, if you got some game, because I'm sure Craig's, the way he sounds like he prepares for a race, I can imagine how he prepares for a round.
I am grimly hanging on to my single-figure handicap at the moment, but it's certainly trending the wrong way.
Well, I wish I had a single-digit handicap. Not even, well, some days I play all right, but other days not so good. Anyway, sorry to interrupt you, Sean, again, doing what I do best.
No, and you know what, Craig, and I hear a lot of announcers say this, but fans don't really realize this. Fans think you go by the numbers, but announcers' keys more are the silks to identify the horses, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Really, the number should be your last port of call. In desperation, you might look for it. Calling at Turf Paradise, you may have seen during the latter part of the day, the sun gets very low in the sky, and it produces a lot of like white shine off the jockey silks, especially. So then you have to rely more on the blinkers the horse is wearing. Does the horse have 4 white feet, for an example? Does the horse have a white bridle? Does the horse have a colored shadow roll and stuff like that? So you look at silks primarily, then you look at the equipment the horse is wearing, and then you might see a little flash of a saddle towel. For example, if they go into the far turn at Turf Paradise when they've got about 3/8 of a mile to go and they're stacked out 4 or 5 wide going into the turn, sometimes it's very difficult to see the outside 2 horses, especially late in the day. And so then you might catch a little bit of the color of the saddle cloth. But on my program, I don't put I don't color in the number or anything like that. I'm relying really on the silks and the equipment.
So it doesn't mess you up. I don't think Turf Paradise does it, but I know like Keeneland and a couple other tracks, when they have those special races, all the saddle cloths are the same color and it drives it better nuts. That doesn't bother you? You never had to experience that?
No, I grew up in the UK where we don't have coloured saddle towels anyway, so it was never something I learned to look for. A lot of the jumps races I do, they don't have coloured saddle towels either, and they're over huge tracks, sometimes more than 2 miles in circumference, that go uphill, downhill, left-handed, right-handed in the same race. So, I'm not used to looking for those.
And you can't rely on the TV at all, because I'd imagine there's a little bit delay between live and the TV.
Actually, my TV at Turf Paradise is in real time. There is a need at Turf Paradise to use the monitor sometimes because the palm trees in the middle of the track sometimes block the view down the far side. You can be following along with your binoculars and suddenly they disappear behind a tree. And inevitably, it's at the time where you're calling the horse who goes behind the tree. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's never, I'm on the leader and he's fine. It's always the horse who's 5th, 3 wide, who I'm calling and disappears behind a tree. So, this is my 3rd meet at Turf Paradise, and I've kind of learned over time when to look at the monitor, when to look through the binoculars. And so I kind of I don't even have to think about doing it now. I just know at certain points as I go around the racetrack, I need to be looking at the TV because they're going to be disappearing from view. And then I pick them up again. What I'll use a transitional phrase. For an example, the 5 furlong start is I can't really see the 5 furlong start from the announcer's booth. So I know I have to rely on the TV for the first furlong and a half or so. And then when they go into the far turn, they've got just over 3/8 of a mile to go. I'll use some kind of transitional phrase like, as they go into the far turn or so on, there's a lot of pace on here. And then that transition phrase, by the time I've got to the end of that sentence, I've got my eyes again on the leading horses.
So when we hear the transitional phrase on TV, we know you've gone from the TV to the track.
Yeah, from the TV to binoculars or back again. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Another great crutch, if you like, is you have to give out the split times. Mm-hmm. So you could always steal a peek at the TV when you give out the opening quarter. So for an example, if I say the opening quarter went by in a speedy 21.95, while I'm saying that particular sentence, what I'm usually doing is having a quick look at the TV, then having a look out the announcer's booth with my eyes, and I sort of take a photo in my head, if you will, of what it looked like on the TV. Then I kind of eyeball it, see if it looks the same. As long as it looks the same, then I pick up the binoculars again and continue calling through them. If on the other hand, it looks a little bit different, I may then have another look at the TV, keep calling, maybe buy myself a few seconds in the race call. Then by that time, maybe they've turned to the top of the stretch. Then I can pick up the binoculars once again. But again, it comes down to experience. It comes down of knowing what to look for. Just for an example, when I say that transitional phrase, with 3/8 of a mile to go, one reason I say that transitional phrase quite often is on my sheet, you know, how I mentioned earlier, I mark off horses who are going to make a late move. Often when I use that transitional phrase, I'm looking for those horses. I'm just quickly, scanning through the field and saying, oh, yes, so-and-so is making a move, so-and-so is making a move. Or you might often hear me say, by the time they reach the quarter pole, XYZ not making that late move today, or has a lot to do if he's going to contend. And so, yeah, I'm kind of reading the race as well as calling it at the same time.
Mm-hmm. I can understand that. So if somebody wants to do what you do, how would you recommend they get started? Get in front of a TV and practice? What would be your suggested pathway to being a race caller?
I think the best way to well, let me have two goes at that question, if you will.
All right, we'll see if we get either one of them right. No, go ahead.
Okay. The first way is to learn the mechanics of race calling. And the best way to do that, I mean, I started when I was a kid in front of a TV, like many people did. But the best way to do that is to go to the track and actually practice through binoculars. Now, once you get that going, let's say we're talking about someone who's a teenager, okay? Mm-hmm. And they want to do this for a living. What I would honestly say to them is once you can kind of call a race half decently and you're 14, 15 years old, is then actually leave racing for a while. Even though it may be your passion, when I was 17 and, I called my first race when I was 15, I was very fortunate to go into journalism, writing, broadcasting, radio in those days in the UK, and a little bit of television, doing things completely non-associated with horse racing. And learning how to be a journalist, learning how to tell a story. Anyone, well, nearly anyone, can go around the track saying first is so-and-so, second is so-and-so, third is so-and-so. But there's a difference between calling names and margins and actually telling the story of a race. Every race has a beginning, a middle, and an end. A race has protagonists. It has antagonists. It has people who are there who can spoil the show. It has favorites who may be a crowd favorite, like SHINNY tomorrow, for an example. Mm-hmm. And if you can learn to tell a story as a journalist in many, many different fields, I think then you can come back to racing or to another form of sports journalism at a slightly older age and have wisdom beyond your years. Whereas someone who is just into horse racing and horse race broadcasting and PR and so on, you'll have an advantage over them. I know it's very difficult nowadays for younger people to get real experience in journalism, just because when I started out in the early to mid 90s, we didn't have the internet revolution that we now have. They needed bodies in place to be able to do a lot of jobs. They don't need that now. But I would really encourage anyone, especially younger, to try and get a job in journalism and keep your passion for horse racing. And then when you kind of united those skills, then go forward into a career as a race caller, if that's what you feel your calling is.
So you had mentioned SHINNY. Sean, SHINNY's running tomorrow, right?
Yeah, race 4 tomorrow at Turf Paradise. SHINNY's running. And the people that don't know SHINNY's story, he was a $3,500 claimer. He's won 17 of 28 career races. His owner, Rob Rosette, ended up getting pancreatic cancer. And this horse kept this. I mean, there's a piece that FanDuel did on it last year that they released on YouTube. You can look up Rob Rosette. It's a beautiful piece. This guy lived for it. Oh, what's that?
Did you cry?
I'm
be
not
honest.
a crier. I'm not a crier, but man, it's close, man.
He's
so
a crier.
unfortunately,
Anyone who says they're not a crier and makes a point to say they're not a crier, they're criers.
Unfortunately, Rob did pass a few months ago, but I believe the race for tomorrow is named after him, if I have that correct. And
Yes,
Shinny's in it, so it's in it. There's going to be a lot of stories there for you to. How do you figure you're gonna? Do you have any ideas on how you're gonna call that race? Do you ever go in with notes on that kind of stuff, or you just kind of whatever comes to you?
So usually, it's interesting you say that because this brings me back to training as a journalist. I'm often asked to give little obituaries or little memorial announcements when we do races. And at Turf Paradise nowadays, they'll just give me 3 or 4 bullet points, and I'll create a little 2-minute spiel out of that. About Rob specifically, I only have the pleasure of meeting him. I think I met him twice. One time I can remember we met in the clubhouse at Turf Paradise, and another time I met him at Turf Paradise as well as he was leaving the building. He was well, we now know he was unwell at the time, but he certainly didn't look particularly unwell then, and I think that was earlier this year, maybe in January or February. And he's a great loss to Arizona racing, especially. He was popular everywhere he went. He contributed a lot of his professional expertise and, of course, his passion and love for horse racing to the horse racing industry in Arizona. And I think wherever his colors have been raised in the past at however many tracks it's been, when Rob was there, he was certainly a man who everybody knew in the bar upstairs, everyone knew in the clubhouse, and he will be greatly missed. But it is great to see Shinny returning tomorrow to Turf Paradise.
Yeah, and 2 friends of the show, the trainers Robertino Diodoro and the jockeys Lindy Wade, and I've talked to Lindy personally about the horse too. Like every jockey that has that connection with this great horse like that, I mean, he's got a great connection there.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead, you can go on that one because I'm going to go different.
I interviewed Lindy Wade before the start of the meet this year. As you know, he injured his hand around December last year, but he's hoping for a very good meet this year. We actually interviewed Robertino Diodoro on our social media at Turf Paradise last week when he was up at Century Mile for a big race they had there a couple of weeks ago. One of our social media people live in Canada, and they got a nice interview with Robertino. But what do you guys think of Shinny's chances tomorrow?
Honestly, I haven't looked at it yet. Sean, have you?
Okay.
I haven't looked at the full field. I know anytime Shinny's in the field, I'm playing Shinny because that horse is a fighter, and I mean it's a 6-horse field. It would be hard for me to bet against Shinny, although I know you're not going to get a price, I'm sure.
No, he's 3-1 on the morning line, and that's incredibly optimistic. I mean, just looking at a few of his recent performances, he's made 6 starts in 2022. He's only been out of the top 3 once, and that was in his last start at Canterbury Park in the middle of September, and he was going for 4 wins in a row on that occasion. And then at Turf Paradise, of course, in the spring, he had 4 wins in a row. So I beg your pardon, he had 4 wins in a row at Turf Paradise, and then had his wins back at Canterbury Park earlier in their 2021 meet. Just an amazing story, really. And doesn't it show, guys, that you know, we hear and we see things like the Breeders' Cup and the Triple Crown, and they claim it's racing putting on their best face and so on, and everyone's dressed up nicely. And you know, I get to announce at plenty of events, especially on the steeplechase circuit, where it's very much like that. And of course, there's a place for that in horse racing. But isn't really horse racing on a daily basis about horses like Shinny that just grind it out, but they love what they do? Mm-hmm. And they get a following among racing fans around the country, not just here at Turf Paradise, but at Canterbury and through social media promotion now. People who never would have given this horse a second look perhaps a few years ago when, we weren't as socially media alert as we are now. He has a real following, and it's just wonderful to see. And I certainly hope he can return to the winner's circle tomorrow.
And something that's great about this horse, and these horses that are the $3,500 claimer that gets claimed, and now he's in a run for the 29th time tomorrow, not 6 times like Flightline. So they can have a following because people get to see him run. I mean, Shinny was the winningest horse last year. I think he won 12 times last year.
Yes, he did.
So,
yes.
Yeah. So I mean, that's a lot nowadays.
Yeah, just to go off topic for a second, going back to the Breeders' Cup a couple of weeks ago, this may be a tad controversial to say, but I do feel in many ways in the now 38 years of the Breeders' Cup, it was first run in 1984, the Breeders' Cup in some ways is almost reaching a critical mass level in the Americans are winning, as one would expect, the dirt races. The Europeans are continuing to dominate in the turf races. How long is that scenario going to play out for? Because in America especially, you get the feeling that we need, people say all the time, we need to develop more staying horses on the turf. Yet, a large part of the issue American racing has is it's easier to train horses to go one turn on the dirt. And when we live in a country like America, which, thankfully, although people downplay the racing industry, the bottom line is I don't know of another country on earth but still supports as many tracks that race as often as they do as the United States or America, and we should do everything to preserve that for the future of horse racing in this country. I really do think we need to get back to having longer turf races, not just for championship horses, but for horses like Shinny who might want to go on the turf. And I would love to see in America tracks get together, maybe over the course of a year, and for instance, have a race, one stakes race. If 12 tracks had one stakes race per month going from January to December for 5-year-olds and upwards on the turf over a distance from 1.25 miles to 1.75 miles, and it moved around the track, and maybe they got points as the season went on, and eventually you had a grand climax race. Wouldn't that be a great idea to get some horses in at the bottom and mid-levels into turf racing at an older age, and also supply full fields for horse players who, by all accounts, love betting on turf racing in the United States?
Yeah, and it would create a fan following too, because you have something to, follow there and track to track. So yeah, I like that idea.
Well, it does seem to me, just from watching from day to day and handicapping different tracks from day to day, you do tend to get, I think, fuller fields in the turf races because there's not that many of them. And I also think that when you look at the dominance of the Europeans in grass racing, my friend Tom and I on Fridays, we do Foreign Fridays, and we spend a lot of time in Europe and Australia and Hong Kong and the like. And it just from grass is the norm there. The dirt is the exception. And usually it's not even dirt. Usually it's all weather track in the rare exception. So it doesn't surprise me that they dominate in turf because it's kind of been their tradition before we were even a country. So it's not even that surprising to me. There's tracks over there. There are literally tracks over there that are older than the United States.
Oh yeah, there's plenty.
Mm-hmm. Is it part of it too? Like if it rains, if it's one quick shower here, we're right off the turf. Where over there, they still pretty much race on it. And you think that's part of it too? Is just stuff like that, like conditions and just less races, like you're saying. Because a lot of tracks. I mean, if it's a drop of water on that turf, they're taking it off.
So I think part of the issue is in Europe, for an example, Newmarket might race Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then not race again for 3 weeks. And therefore, the turf can recover. And of course, we have a lot of jumps racing in the UK, but I'm involved with here in the United States as well. And there, the majority of horses love there to be some cut in the ground. They like soft going. They like, some of them even like heavy going. But I do think with the more industrialized nature of racing in the United States compared to where in Great Britain we go from one track to another every 2 or 3 days or so, I think it's a different business model to a large degree. Turf Paradise has 2, occasionally we card 3 turf races on the card, and of course we're in the middle of a desert here. You're never going to get the kind of turf conditions at Turf Paradise that you get at Saratoga in the summer when it's been raining for 3 straight days. And even if they do go on the turf for that day because they have a particular stakes race, it never really plays the same way twice in the climate you have in the United States, unless you're in a climate like Turf Paradise, that tends to be one kind of weather all year round. So there's a lot of different pieces to bring together there. But I do think, going back to what we were saying earlier, I think promoting turf racing for older horses has got to be a good thing. And I would love, to take that a stage further. I've said this before in the past on social media. There is a need at many race courses in the United States to have a senior series for horses, where they're for horses 7, 8-year-olds and upwards, running against their peers at a distance where they don't have to overdo it, where they can take their time, where you can build up a fan following for these horses and still have them as good wagering affairs. Mm-hmm. But that's one of the things that needs to be a little bit of a paradigm shift, I think, before that gets going.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. So we're talking about one thing in the grass being hot. So let's change subjects a little bit. You're from the UK. In a week or so, they'll be playing another game in the heat on some grass. How they're going to do it, I don't know. I guess my son was telling me it's like 95 degrees in Qatar today. So it'll be interesting to see how the World Cup plays out. You're from the UK. So UK, United States, they're in the same group.
They are.
How do you handle that? Do you lie to the people at Turf Paradise and go, "Yay, go USA," and then when you're at home, you're waving?
Go USA! Yeah. Well, in England, one moment that was voted the proudest moment of the last 1,000 years, and we've had a bit of history in England in the last millennium or so, was in 1966 at Wembley Stadium in London, when we beat West Germany 4-2 in the World Cup final. And that was voted by British people one of the moments of the last millennium. Now, we've lost twice in the semi-finals to the bloody Germans since then, so that hasn't done us much good. But I can see England winning their group. I can see the USA finishing second in the group. I don't think England are going to get beyond the quarterfinals. I don't think the US realistically are going to get beyond the round of 16.
One thing about the U.S., I'm going to give them a little bit of hope in that I think they're actually the youngest team from what I've read roster-wise in the World Cup. And the one thing that they have is they have a lot of athleticism and they're very fast, which at times, if you play right, can be very difficult to deal with if you're a little bit older, a little bit slower. So we'll see if maybe they can open up a few angles on some teams and get a couple lucky goals here and there. My son thinks England's going to actually make the finals. I don't know. It seems to me they have a lot of good players, but something always seems to go wrong.
Well, the English soccer team have made it a job for decades now of being able to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. But I do kind of agree with you about the US team. They are very young, as you say. What I have not seen from them in their warm-up games to the World Cup is really the cohesion they need to go forward as a team. You can get away in the group stages with a couple of lucky goals. In the group stage, you can afford to lose a match if you can at least win one of your matches by 2 clear goals.
Mm-hmm.
And that is going to be difficult for them to win the group, certainly. But they could get into second place with that. I don't think they're going to be England, for an example, but I do think they can beat the other teams in their group. And that's not me saying that as an England fan. I think England's experience there will show them up a little bit. I think a lot for the US really depends on team morale and team courage. If they can keep themselves moving forward. And if I had a criticism of the US team, I talked a minute ago about how they lacked cohesion. Maybe that will work to their advantage, because the US in previous World Cups have often tried to play a form of cultured soccer, very much a triangular passing game from one player to another, gradually make your way upfield. Sometimes you need more than a couple of players on a team who can suddenly provide a dynamic kick, especially in the attack. And that may help the US if, of course, they have the nerve to take that freedom and exploit it. Whether they can and whether they can overcome, and the same can be said for the other teams, the weather conditions in Qatar. I mean, I was not a fan of taking the World Cup to Qatar. I think it was done for all the wrong reasons.
The reason everything else is done, right?
Well, that is true. I mean, personally, this is just my personal view. I would never go there, and I don't follow Dubai racing at all. That's just some personal choice. I understand other people can make that choice as well, and I have no issue with that. But for me, this doesn't sit well as a World Cup. When I think about some of the great World Cups in the past, just before I was born, the Mexico World Cup in 1970, the Mexico World Cup in 86, Italia 90, even USA 94, France in 98 as well. I'm sorry, but they were World Cups held at, of course, West Germany in 74. They were World Cups held at places with a long history of football. Mm-hmm. They were more than just football arenas. Football was if you cut the people open, it was what they bled. Mm-hmm. Can we really say the same for Qatar? I mean, they might be good at cutting people open there, but I don't think it's to see whether they like football.
All right. Speaking of which, you said they bleed. I don't know. Have you seen this show on FX with Deadpool, Robert Ryan Reynolds? Have you seen that show? Welcome to Wexford. No, it's a good show. I mean, if you like about soccer, about a local city and how they're all like kind of how it's interesting from our perspective, because football here is the Bears, the Cardinals, NFL, and it's kind of in a lot of ways it's from a distance until you get to the game, right? Whereas it seems to me over there, it's kind of like it's kind of like different, because like everything is about the community. A lot of small communities, everything is about that soccer team, right?
Yeah, and that's very much the case, not only with soccer, but in the north of England, there's a code of rugby called Rugby League. And in the UK, we have Rugby Union and Rugby League. And Rugby League, well, when I was growing up, they're all professional now, was a professional game played by the hard-working mining and steel communities of the north of England. And the reason they play the game professionally is simply the men had jobs like working class blue collar jobs Monday to Friday, and they needed to play for money. Whereas in the south of England, where I'm from, we played rugby union, which was a more amateur form of the game for people who, generally speaking, had a few more pounds in the bank. And rugby and football and cricket is very, very parochial and very tribal in the UK. I mean, for instance, there's rivalries between teams who are only 3 or 4 miles apart, or maybe even less than that in the UK. And, families have arguments about it. Whereas here in the United States, you have the Packers and the Bears rivalry, for an example. But I mean, realistically, they're not exactly on opposite sides of town from each other. Whereas in England, it's two teams playing against each other from the same town or the same district quite often. So people get very emotional about it. It's interesting when you go to an NFL game in the United Kingdom or in Europe now, and you see fans there wearing team shirts from almost every team in the entire franchise. And people who go to the NFL games in London are not so much going there to support the two teams who the NFL happen to ship over. It's more or less just for their love of American football, and which is very different than when I've been to NFL games in the United States or when I've been to college football games where everyone is about their team. So there's definitely very different variations of fandom in both football and American football.
I read a story once about the Rangers and the Celtics.
Oh my!
Where they have to literally split the stadium in pieces, separating the fans by like chain link fences. They have to let one group of fans out, and then wait like an hour and a half to let the other group of fans out. So they literally don't beat the hell out of each other.
And that wasn't just Rangers and Celtic. That was at football stadium throughout England and Scotland when I was growing up in the 1980s and 1990s. Segregation was a huge thing because there was so much violence associated with football. In the case of Celtic and Rangers, you also got to remember that largely Celtic players and management and owners have traditionally been Roman Catholic, whereas the players and the team management for Glasgow Rangers have been primarily Protestant. And if you know anything about British history, you'll know that has been an issue for many, many centuries in both England and Scotland. And unfortunately, that still plays out some today.
But back to more fun things. Let's talk about Turf Paradise. What's happening there tomorrow? Anything that you hit an 8-1 winner today? Did you circle anything on the card tomorrow? That'll be 8-1.
I have not honestly done my homework for tomorrow yet. I'm going to do that as soon as I get off here with you guys. And girlfriend's going to go out, get us Mexican food. And then I have my dinner and begin work tomorrow. Obviously, Shinny in race 4 would be the pick. I'd like to give a special shout out to my co-handicapper at Turf Paradise. You guys know about my co-handicapper?
I'm not familiar. Sean, you?
No.
I know you used to have the a daily handicap. Oh, is it your dog?
Yes, my dog.
Oh, yes, I remember the last time.
Yeah.
Now, yes, I did. I remember.
Well, they've got off and gone and done something else. But yes, we have Ricky Blind Dog.
I remember that from last time.
And the way how that works, you two, be quiet. Bloody horrible animals, both of you. Okay, sorry about that. So what I do is I get the past performances. Ricky! Look, Ricky.
He wants some airtime.
Ricky's trying to tell us how he picks them.
Come here, buddy. Come here. He's being just horrible right now anyway. So what I do is I put the past performances out in front of him, and then I get him to put his paw on one horse, and that becomes his best bet.
And how is it done? I'm just out of curiosity. Do you keep track of all or no?
He's cashed 2 from 6 tickets so far, which, considering he's a blind dog, that's not so bad.
He's probably better than most blind horse
The
players.
strange thing is, since we've been doing that, I get more questions now asking for Ricky's best bet than I do mine.
So you'll have to let us know who's Ricky's best bet is for tomorrow.
We'll put it on our social media every single day.
And Sean will make sure you retweet that, right, Sean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. Best social media handicapper on Twitter.
There we go.
Anything else, Sean, from you today?
Yeah, I have a couple more questions yet, and sure. I got to bust on Rich a little bit. You mentioned the NFL, and the 2 best teams you could come up with were the Bears and the Cardinals. Wow. So one thing
busting on me.
I don't know, because what were you trying to name? The worst teams to say about
I was just saying that I'm in Chicago and he's in Arizona, Sean.
There you go.
Yes,
Yeah.
be a little quicker, Sean. A little quicker, my friend.
So one thing I want to, there's different rules with this. I've heard different things. How do you come up with the lengths? How do you figure it out so quick? Like the lengths on when a horse wins by or how far ahead they are. What's the rule of thumb?
You just look at it and guess.
Is that really how it is?
Yeah, pretty much. Well, I mean, you learn over time how much it is. You just sort of take it in. I guess but pretty much it's a guesstimate, and some days the guesses are good. Peter Aiello, my friend, Gulfstream, okay? When I'm calling quarter horse races, I like to call the first 4 over the line, even in the tightest of photos. And he'll send me a text just as soon as I turn the microphone off saying, "You're bleeping insane." But no, a lot of the time it's educated guesswork, I would say. Yeah. Of course, I could go out and say, yes, of course, in England I grew up, and if I didn't call it 2.5 lengths exactly, I got hit with a cane 50 times.
That might happen.
Aside from the fact that it could be enjoyable, there was nothing like that. No, it's really guesswork.
And then the other thing,
just laughed at me, by the way, when I mentioned getting hit by a cane 50 times. That's if I send out an SOS on Twitter tonight, folks, we know
why, huh?
Yeah.
And then my last questions are, well, what's the tough names that you hate to pronounce? Like, when do you look at the program and like, oh man, I got to pronounce this name tomorrow?
So we actually had one today. So I'll spell it out for you, okay?
Okay.
Cinnte.
Sinzuinti?
Wow. Yeah, something like that.
Is that close?
I'm not even trying.
So that has actually said Chinter Winter. Not winter, winter. Chinter Winter.
Wow.
I wouldn't
You
have
know what that means?
No idea. It means it's some kind of cold winter somewhere in.
Very good. Very good. It means cold winter in Gaelic.
Ah, there you go.
Yeah.
How many times did you have to say that horse's name during the race?
Oh, several. And what I done is I wrote it down on my program. You know how when you see like a little 4x9 program and they have the horse's name? I just sort of wrote it out like
phonetically.
Yeah, like that. And hope for the best. But with names like that, they're the ones who, when the horses are going down to start, you repeat more often so you get it into your head. There was a horse today called Bangy Girl, Bangigirl. Now, if you're from the part of England where I'm from, like the nice part, Cambridge, has nice people there. Not like people from Liverpool or anything like that. You would say bang with a soft G. Or if you're from London, you go bang. But if you're from Cambridge, you'd say bang with a soft G. But of course, in America, you wouldn't do that. The G becomes almost silent. So you would say Bangy Girl. And I just about got away with it today. But I think I slipped in a G once. And I was like, oh, I shouldn't have done that.
It's all right. We'll let you go with. We'll let you ride.
Well, that's a good one too. What about the names that if you just pronounce it like it's trying to set you up to say the wrong thing, basically?
Get you kicked off the air.
Yeah. Oh well, I probably said the wrong thing many times in my race calling career without dealing with horses' names. So
that would be my problem.
I just roll with it. Someone once told me that I was a great announcer when I was silent. And my boss at Turf Paradise, I had a day last year when I couldn't be there, and we had a fill-in announcer who did a great job, okay? And my boss at Turf Paradise, Dave Johnston, was always going on, Craig, you talk too much, yada, 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 yada. The one day I wasn't there, the next day I came back and he said, oh, we missed you talking on the microphone. Well, you can't have it both ways. You know.
Well, it's the old adage, you don't know what you got till it's gone, right?
That is very true. That is very true.
Absolutely, for sure. Well, we've kept you long enough from your Monday tacos, from your Monday margarita, maybe in tacos. I don't know, because, it's Tuesday tacos, so we got to have some kind of
I have just
alliteration
learned
in there.
about Mexican food, and so I have like what do I have, baby?
Chicken chimney, green chili, enchilada style.
Do you hear that? Chicken
Yes.
chimichanga, green chili,
Enchilada style.
enchilada style. Yeah. I, as you can imagine, do not have much Mexican in my heritage.
Can imagine that's probably
Yeah,
true.
you can imagine that might be the case. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. From England, I can see that.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to let you enjoy your verde salsa Jimmy enchiladas, and we certainly look forward to getting back with you again. And then tomorrow we'll be watching Shinny. Sean, anything else before we let Craig roll?
No, that's it. We'll definitely have Craig on again. We always enjoy when Craig's on, and we always enjoy your calls. And I can tell you, I know social media is a bad thing, but I can tell you overall, 99% approval rating of you as a caller. So it must make you feel good that people like hearing your calls.
Thank you, Sean, and congratulations to you both on the increase in participation in horse racing today and getting more and more noticed. You guys have come a long way in a short time, and you make a very positive contribution to the horse racing industry as well.
Thank you for the kind words. We appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
I'm gonna take that, and I'm gonna book it, and I'm gonna put it on YouTube when you first come on. Thank you.
All right.
Have a great afternoon, a great evening. We will talk to you soon.
Thanks,
Bye-bye. As always, a lot of fun, Sean. No?
Yeah, absolutely. And it was nice. That's what's nice when we get people back on. Now we've already known about his background and stuff like that, so we can go more to the race calling, and you can go to different things when you have these people on more times and learn more.
Yeah, we can kind of go about the topics of the day, like World Cup, that might be of interest to the guests as well. And obviously from the UK, soccer being what it is over there, where they literally have to separate the fans from knocking the hell out of each other. What are you going to do? So tomorrow we'll continue our string of good guests. We go east tomorrow for who's tomorrow? Kendrick, right?
Kendrick Carmouche, yep. And I talked to him today to confirm everything. We're all good. So
all right.
he'll be another fun one.
Oh yes,
Wednesday.
We have a lot of fun. We'll have a lot of fun with Kendrick for sure.
And speaking of fun, Wednesday, CC Perkinson, she was a blast the first time, so she'll be nothing but a blast the second time.
I think she's come on twice already, Sean.
Has she?
Yes, I think
That'll
the
be a
first
third
time
time
she came on, and then the second time I had to wear the red pants. Remember?
Oh, okay. Yeah, you might
maybe.
be right.
Maybe.
Yeah,
I
no. You know what? I think you're right. So yeah, we're gonna have her on 3 times. So
yes, indeed. Third time will be the charm for Cece. So I'm looking forward to that. It's always good to talk to her. It'll be a lot of fun for sure. And then tomorrow, Terry and I will go after Horseshoe Indianapolis at 12 o'clock Eastern. Wednesday, Charles and I will tackle Churchill Downs. Thursday, it'll be Aqueduct. Friday is Foreign Friday. Tom always surprises me about Wednesday or Thursday with what we're going to do for that. And then we'll continue Saturday shows now. Yeah, we're going to stick to our normal time slot. We try to speed it up a little bit on Saturday for Churchill, but that was a disastrous mistake. We won't do that again, Sean.
Yeah. The thing is, the scratches don't come out well enough in advance at all.
Well,
when you're trying to do something.
If we had started maybe 15 minutes earlier, we would have been good because then none of the scratches would have been out. But once the scratches started, they come and rolling, and then you got to make sure you got everything accurate. So in any case, that wraps up our schedule for the rest of this week. Sean, certainly look forward to that. Next week, Jamie returns, or am I here again next week? I don't know.
No, Jamie's back next week. Jamie came back from vacation. I believe she came back from vacation. She's off to her full-time job, but next week she'll be off and in here.
All right, perfect. So I'm looking forward to having a little bit of time off as well because we're working on some great things for 2023. Can't wait to unleash them. So in order to make sure you don't miss what we're working on, go ahead and hit the subscribe button while you're here on YouTube. Follow us on our social media sites at Horse Race, the number 2 day, Horse Race 2 day. And then you'll be alerted when we start rolling out some of this really cool content for 2023. I'm looking forward to it, Sean. That wraps it up, takes us wire to wire for this Money Monday. Sean, no matter what you're doing, and I know you didn't do anything on the game tonight, I don't think, right?
No, I didn't. 11 points, I just couldn't do it. And I'm definitely not back in Washington. So
Yeah, well, I went with the Eagles in the over for them, and right now they're halfway there. So hopefully they can get 2 more touchdowns, and it'll somewhat clean up an otherwise ugly week. And until we get back again tomorrow, Sean, whether it's the Eagles scoring 28, you're doing some horse racing tonight or tomorrow morning with Terry and I, we hope that it ends up in one place. And where can that be, Mr. Blake?
Say it. Gotta say it. Winner circle. Say it.
All right.
Winner circle.
Thank you, Blake. Have a good evening, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.